Progress.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Finance and Administration Committee meeting for June 24th, 2025. My name is Jim Spear. I am the chair of the committee.
June 26th.
Oh, sorry, June 26th. I'll edit that. It'll be great. Mike Salmonson is the vice chair of this committee, and Michael Gardini is a member of this committee. Maggie Dobbs is here, who's our borough manager, and Emily Pisano is our assistant borough manager. May I have a motion for approval of the May 15th minutes?
So moved. Second.
Okay, everyone had a chance to review in the new format? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes for May? Thank you, the minutes are approved. Treasurer's report, Ms. Dobbs.
All right, so we are looking good for our expenditures and revenues for the year. You'll note at this point we have more or less received all of the bulk of the taxes that we're going to get, so most of our revenue has been received. So you'll note in our reconciliation reports that we do have that influx sitting in our general fund. I had mentioned last month that we have new Pliget accounts set up. So what I would like to do with you all at our next meeting is I'm going to be working on drafting a fund reserve policy, which I know that you were working on previously with Matt West prior to his departure. So I'm going to be picking that up again and working on that over the next month. So I hope to have something before you July or August, if not, so that we can take a look at where we are, what we need in our fund accounts, and make a policy then to move that money and have you give blessing there, and then that money will go sit in the Pliget account, which has a much higher interest rate. I believe it's sitting at about 4.65 or 4.56, one of those percents, which is much higher than what we're getting with our regular citizens accounts. So otherwise, looking at our budget versus actual, again, and nothing really jumps out. We do have some higher expenditures than anticipated in some of our public works line items. So I will be working with Jeff Eldon to address some of those and see if there's anything that we need to be doing there. But otherwise, we're trucking along and doing well. So happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Looks like we're a little ahead of budget on expenses.
Mm-hmm.
But not
And some of that's coming in. So some of that is in anticipation of some of the potential tariffs and just getting ahead on our road program. There was more expenditures for some of our public work. So we pre-spent some of that money. So you'll see it hit the books earlier in the year, but we don't anticipate that that we're going to be spending an equal amount in the second half of the year. So we should still be relatively on target for those things, but we will be discussing, there's a couple of other expenses that we're going to be looking at later in the meeting. Some emergency expenses that are going to be coming out of some of our other funds, but we have the money to kind of cover everything. But I think, Mike, what you're seeing is just because we spent the money a little bit earlier in the year to kind of account for that, just to kind of get ourselves in good spot, but we shouldn't be exceeding too much of our budget. So I'll keep you guys posted as we go through.
Okay, sounds good. Should we move to action items? Okay, how about a motion for the scheduled bills for the sewer, general sewer, solid waste, capital, highway aid, and green funds totaling $418,208.17.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Anybody have anything to remark about the scheduled bills? Questions?
Nothing new.
No, it's
Sort of
all
redundant
routine.
to it.
Yeah, it's all routine.
I didn't see anything in there
Great.
I'm sorry, the one thing that I will say is that I will be, is it for one of these? Oh, no, never mind.
Talking about the transfer.
Yes,
One. Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
not part of this.
which is not part of this.
Okay.
Okay, all right, shall we vote to approve this?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of approving the scheduled bills? Okay, 3-0 against. Thank you. Okay, how about a motion on the updates to employee handbook?
I move to approve the updates to the employee handbook as modified in the last meeting and this meeting.
Okay. Second, all right, let's hear Mike.
Yeah, and I guess this is me. Jeff picked up, well, first of all, there were some things that you guys had left to me to edit. So the additional edits are mostly pursuant to what council as a whole agreed to last time. It was just me implementing that language. Somehow, and I guess Jeff maybe picked this up and then Emily called me. There's some additional language that was in the earlier version of the handbook that somehow between the time it went from Alan to me got dropped out involving these break times. It's in 4.1 and Emily managed to pick that up. So that's really just putting in what somehow got omitted somehow in the transmission of the original draft of the old policy from Alan to me. So I don't know how that happened.
Okay, so that's back in.
Yeah.
Anything else back in since last time?
And then there's just the language that we,
Okay.
the 4.15, the vehicle use policy again, and the Narberth fire company volunteers. Again, there's some language in there that was added in to reflect actual practices. If you look at some 4.15 and 4.16.
Wait a minute. Injuries sustained while serving as a volunteer firefighter will not be covered. Oh, I see, okay. All right. They have their own policy for that, I gather? Okay, all right. Sounds good. Any more questions on this? Anything else to add? Should we vote to approve this as written now? Okay, all in favor of the employee handbook? Great. Thank you, everybody. Okay, C, can I have a motion for, well, it says adoption, but I think we're probably still discussing this, but on,
It really shouldn't be an action item, I think. It should be a discussion.
yeah, all right, let's motion it here and talk about it. And, all right. What do you think?
What would we be voting on?
Can we just talk about this tonight and not with the intent to, okay.
Yeah.
Should we move it? So move it down
move
to
it,
discussion.
yeah.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you want to move it just to discussion items?
I guess so.
Yeah,
Okay, so then,
because there's nothing to vote on. If we're just discussing it then.
okay, then yes, we can move it down to discussion
Yeah,
items.
we're not that optimistic. Okay, let's move on to updates to fee schedule. Can I have a motion for that?
I move to approve the updates to the fee schedule as reflected in resolution 2025-13. Second that.
Great. And
These are things that have all been previously discussed. I think we just have to formally adopt them by
Right.
ordinance.
Yeah.
So there's
the
I think we
charging
can just-
rate is here. There was one other very new thing, right?
the food truck vendor registration.
Okay.
So for the food truck vendor registration, this is something that we're implementing for any food truck operating in the borough. And we are keeping the registration fee the same as what we charge for residential contractors, say general contractors or plumbers. So it's simply just to have their certificate of insurance on hand. And then if they're most likely operating as part of some sort of special event, and then their location and presence on the streets of the borough would be reviewed as part of that special event permit. So this is just the registration form.
Yeah.
So this is not like an event or facilities use form. This is just like a contractor registration form essentially for food trucks.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
What does the ice cream truck pay? Are they a food vendor truck or they?
They fall in a different classification. I started looking into the legalities of that, and because they don't quite operate in the same way as a food truck does, where they come and they sit on the curb for a period of time and have a generator running. I mean, they will drive around and stop, but continue on. But as far as I can tell, they fall under a different sort of classification, and they would not actually be subject to this.
Oh,
Oh, that's interesting.
Do they pay anything to? All right, just
In
curious.
theory, they should be paying their business privilege tax to do business.
I can guarantee that they operate more than 15 business days.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You got
You
that
hear
guy down
that
my block
music
and I
starting in March.
Exactly.
Annoyingly in
Sometimes
March.
it really is.
It's so good.
Okay.
You don't love being able to run out and grab ice cream?
They don't come down my block, so I hear it.
Oh, yeah,
for
yeah,
half
Shirley-
an
Shirley
hour
Circle's probably
as they
not.
drive all around, and I never get to buy any ice cream.
Well, that's the third circle of hell, probably.
That's right.
Okay, so ice cream truck is not included in this. So, any more discussion on the update?
This is all the
Okay,
stuff
let's
we've seen.
voting to approve the update to the fee schedule. All in favor? 3 in favor, none against. Thank you. May I have a motion for budget amendment for the Park and Rec food truck event.
So moved.
I will second.
Okay, well, what's this all about?
All right, so when Parks and Rec came before council at the beginning of the year with some events that they wanted to hold, some of the events included the expenditure of money that hadn't been previously budgeted in last year's budget for this year, or last year for this year's budget. The food truck event is billed, and the Parks and Rec committee members who are organizing this are looking to keep it as revenue neutral as possible. But so we had the one event already for the movie night, which did cost about $1,500. It was for the rental of the screen, the company to come in who has the screen and the licensing rights to show the movie. Parks and Rec did indicate that they were interested in another movie night. They haven't confirmed that, so that isn't final or scheduled. And then we have the food truck event. So again, the food truck event is looking at being revenue neutral. I was looking just at the budget, and just to kind of cover our bases, if they do want to have a little bit of an extra budget for some wiggle room and for some activities at the food truck event, because it got council's blessing, I want to just make sure that there's money in the budget that they can utilize for that community event, and that they don't try to be too scrappy about it, because this is intended to have events at different locations in our parks throughout the borough. This is supposed to be a family fun event, so if we're committed to spending the money on it, I was able to locate in our professional services budget line item, we are 100% not going to spend that full allocated amount. So what I'm suggesting is we swap some of the money from the professional services that I can personally guarantee that we will not be using. So this is for some of our consultants, and because we're already halfway through the year and we're well under what we're spending for them, if our usage will continue to be the same, we will not use that full amount. So what I'm suggesting is we take $5,000 from that line item and move it to our recreation and special events, because currently the recreation and special events line item is 100% already earmarked for other events, for the business association, for all of the other events that occur in the borough. So that means that Parks and Rec doesn't actually have any sort of a budget for the events that they have already held and are planning to hold later this year.
Yeah.
So the $5,000 is kind of the minimal amount that I thought that would cover for the 2 movie nights, if they end up having another one, and the food truck festival. And then if they need other small supplies for some of the other educational events that they're looking at holding at Elm Grove Park, then we have a little bit of budget kind of set aside for those events and activities. So this is just to kind of codify that, and then that tees us up as well as we get into budget season in the fall to have Parks and Rec then come to us with an actual itemized budget for the events that they want to do for next year. So we're teeing them up this year to cover what we've already spent essentially, and then that way we'll have that kind of baked into our setup for next year.
Great, okay.
And of course, we can remind them that just because we're giving them money, they don't have to spend it.
They
if
don't
it
have to
turns
spend
out.
the full 5,000, right? So they don't need to, get a bouncy house and a magician and a face painter and all the things. But if they want to, they have a little bit of money then now to do some of those extra activities to make the event more the family friendly, full activities that they're looking
I'm
into.
really looking forward to this.
Cool.
Yeah. Good. All right, so we'll vote in favor of this. All in favor of the budget amendment for food trucks? Yes. Thank you. 3-0. Good. Okay, next item is capital improvement Plan project. Motion for replacement of municipal buildings fire escape doors.
I move to approve the capital improvement plan project replacement of municipal building fire escape doors.
Second.
Set forth in the.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So this one was brought to my attention by Ken Watson. He is one of our housemen and he knows this building better than anybody. He included a couple of photos of the fire escape doors. So these are the doors on the external side of the building that lead outside. And some of them are they're all in pretty rough shape. So there's 3 doors. There's one that you can see kind of has like a hole in the bottom of it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that once we replace these doors, we never have to replace them in anybody's lifetime. But
When were these things first installed?
I don't even know, actually. I'm sure it's been decades. So we did receive 3 price estimates for it. This does not exceed bid requirements, and the lowest responsible bidder is this Alderfer Glass at $14,995 for the replacement of those doors. So this company was represented the lowest amount. It does exceed the expenditure amount that we would need to get at least 3 telephonic quotes. So we have the 3 here, they're the lowest. So Ken is comfortable moving forward with Alderfer Glass to do the door replacement.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Very good. All in favor of that? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, G, may I have a motion for release of final escrow for 650 Montgomery Ave land development?
Move to recommend releasing final escrow for 650 Montgomery Ave.
And second.
Okay, thank you.
So this one is a pretty straightforward one as well. If you recall, about 2 months ago in April, the letter of credit for 650 Montgomery Ave for their financial security was expiring, but they were so close to being done. We just needed just a little bit more to tide us through. So the applicant then submitted to us just a cash escrow in the amount of $32.50, so $3,250. So the work has been completed and has been reviewed and inspected and approved by our engineer as stated in their letter from May 22nd. So what we're asking for tonight is now that the project is complete, all of the checklist items have been completed. This project is now fully and completely done. The land development is considered now closed upon release of this final escrow. So this is the last remaining item that we need to do to fully close out this land development plan. Otherwise, they've met all of their site improvements. And so this is it. So we just have the check that we never actually cashed it since we assumed that it was going to be
Giving
coming
back.
getting back soon. So we've just been holding on to that. So we're just going to return that to them upon the release, and then this one will be considered complete and filed away, and we can move on to other land developments.
There were some questions I thought last time about some replacement of some vegetation or something.
Yeah, that's all
But
good.
that's all.
That's all
taken care
been
of?
completed.
Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
I went out and checked that out myself. It looks
That's what
looks
I
good.
remember. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Okay. Oh, okay. Let's vote in favor of that, of the escrow release for 650 Montgomery Ave. Thank you. Getting rid of nothing. Okay. Item H, may I have a motion to appoint the solicitor for the Narberth Industrial Development Authority.
I move to appoint the solicitor for the Narberth Industrial Development Authority.
Second.
Okay. Who is this person?
Yeah, and actually, I should note that this is not appointing. I apologize. The motion was a little confusing. It's not appointing the solicitor; it's approving the rate of the solicitor.
Okay. Do we need to say that again?
So I'm sorry. Can we make a new motion?
Can you?
Substitute motion.
I actually think that's subsumed, like the rate is part of the appointment, right? So I think you can,
We can probably roll with it.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not making the appointment though. So
Recommending approval of the
Yeah.
rate for the,
Yeah. So F&A isn't making the appointment. Council's making the appointment. So F&A is really the fees.
okay. Okay,
and then council will make
gotcha.
the actual
Okay.
appointment.
Okay.
Say something different.
So I move to approve the rate set forth in the proposed appointment of the solicitor for the Norwood Industrial Development Authority.
Second.
Okay. And.
Don't ask me to pay this or to charge you this rate for any of your private work because it's a great rate. It's only $5 an hour for the annual rate.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. It's a great rate. It's a good.
It's a good rate
It's a good
for, I mean, you know, these firm, or I guess it's 185, sorry.
Right, so,
185, sorry. I thought it
okay,
was-
did we second the
Yes.
revised motion? Okay. So this gentleman is a colleague of John Walco, who is our general counsel. He also works for Kilkenny Law. So he comes recommended from Mr. Walco to serve as the solicitor for our Industrial Development Authority, whose solicitor, Fred Wentz, has retired after, I don't know, 50 years of practicing law. So he was serving as the IDA solicitor for about 20 years. He was the originator of the IDA. He was the original solicitor for the IDA. So we have Mr. Gallagher, so James Gallagher with Kilkenny Law. So it's a rate of $185 an hour. So this is a great municipal rate for this. And again, the IDA is, meets infrequently, but does have legal obligations and requirements. I have had a conversation with him, a couple actually, to bring him up to speed on what we have going on. And so he seems like he'll be a great fit. So we recommend that we bring him on board.
Are there any, and I guess this would go for H and I, are there any situations in which having the solicitor and the solicitor of the NIDA or the zoning hearing board being from the same firm would cause any sort of problem?
No, it shouldn't be a conflict of interest. They work in the same firm, but they don't all work. I mean, Kilkenny's a fairly large firm, I believe, so it's not going to be a conflict of interest in that if there is, then we will explore what that might be and make accommodation at that time.
Yeah, there are cases where the zoning hearing board and the borough are in conflict and has gone to litigation before.
Well,
Right,
the
so
zoning-
that's why the zoning board is not with Kilkenny.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So when you get
okay.
there, it's.
Okay,
That's-
sorry.
Yep, which is
Irrelevant.
the same firm that has represented the,
Strike what I said. No concern.
I'm trying to think of any situations where the Industrial Development Commission would be in conflict with council. I don't think based on what they do, I don't see how that could happen, but obviously if the conflict comes up,
It gets flagged.
it gets flagged, we make the decision whether to waive the conflict or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't have any.
No, I
specific
sort of thought of
mind.
it too, and I saw that it was Kilkenny, but I
Alright,
couldn't
well,
think of.
If that ever happens, we're still getting a great rate, right?
Yeah.
So- Okay, so let's approve their rate, if that's what we're approving, right? 185. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Moving on to the same thing.
Yep.
You're going to make a motion for
And I'm
that?
sorry, for this one as well,
Yeah,
it's
same.
the rate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
I'd like to move to approve the rates related to the appointment of the solicitor for the Narberth Zoning Hearing Board as set forth in the letter in the packet.
Second.
Okay, great. So, under the municipality's planning code, the zoning hearing board has the authority to appoint their own solicitor. So again, Fred Wentz, formerly the solicitor for the IDA and the zoning hearing board, upon his retirement, we needed a new solicitor for the zoning hearing board as well. I helped the zoning hearing board put together a slate of candidates for them to interview. So they held interviews earlier this month and decided on appointing Michael Crotty of Sienna Law as the new solicitor for the zoning hearing board. I have worked with Mr. Crotty in the past and can attest to his brilliance in land use law. So we are looking at, let's see, his rates are 205.
That seems like a good rate too.
which is also, it's very on par with municipal rates in zoning, the zoning world. So I'm confident that he will be an excellent attorney for the zoning hearing board. They don't have many cases, in a given year, but he's a great asset to have. So his rates are here, and again, the ZHB as the sole appointer of the actual solicitor, we're just here to approve the rate fee.
Makes sense.
Good.
And that firm is also our outside counsel for civil service.
Yes,
Okay.
different attorney.
Yeah, different attorneys.
Yes.
I had a good experience with them.
All right, let's vote all in favor of the rate for the zoning hearing board solicitor. Great. Passed. Okay, motion for manhole replacement.
I move to recommend capital spending for the replacement of the manhole as shown in the memorandum of backup.
Second.
Second.
Great. All right.
Jim, do you want to explain this one too?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So in advance of our road paving program, our public works crew has been out replacing manholes along the routes that are going to be repaved. And one of those locations is on Winwood. So this is at the intersection of Winwood and Grayling. As they were,
Winwood or Windsor?
I'm sorry,
That's Windsor.
Windsor.
Alright.
What did I say? Winwood?
Yeah.
I apologize. Windsor.
Alright.
And Grayling. And when they were doing the excavation, they essentially sunk right through. So in the one photo on the left, you can see that divot there, kind of that sunken area of asphalt next to the manhole. So if you see those white lines kind of at a diagonal to the corner, there is a storm sewer inlet right at that corner, and the pipe that connects from that inlet into the manhole has corroded out, which is what you can see in the photo on the right.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that that is not discharging into the manhole, and it's just discharging into the ground around it. So it's not actually going into the storm conveyance system. It is just seeping into the ground, and it's causing damage. So this pipe is A, not connected, and B, is corroded, so it's not able to then support the weight of the roadway on top of it. So what we need to do is to come in and repair it. So I did receive, it's not in your packet, but earlier this morning I did receive a memo from Jeff Eldon that refers to, let's see. Let me just pull this up real fast. He was able to get a quote. So given the location of this, we're going to call it a sinkhole for lack of a better term. It's not actually a sinkhole, but we're going to call it that. Because of the location of it, it's on a heavily trafficked roadway. It's right in front of the church, which also serves as a daycare. So we have a lot of folks driving over this area. Given the concerns about safety, because we don't want, it's also in the bus route. So we don't want something heavy hitting this and sinking further and causing more damage. So we need to do an emergency repair on this. This is going to come out of our capital funding for stormwater. Because we got the grant funding for the bump outs on Grayling, we actually have plenty of money in our already allocated budget for stormwater improvements, stormwater maintenance and improvements, that this is going to get covered within that, which is great news. And the estimate that we received falls under the threshold where we even need to get 3 telephonic quotes. So it is a company called Horn Plumbing and Heating who have proposed this work where they would excavate the line, dig it up. So if I can just quickly read off. So they'll jackhammer where the line is in the road, dig up the blacktop, dirt, stone, old pipe, and remove everything, install a new 12-inch PVC pipe from the inlet to the storm drain, seal both ends with a waterproof cement, and then they will pack the area with new stone and do a patch on top. And then when our contractor comes through to do the road repaving, they'll do the full, the base, the full, the mill and overlay. So it's great timing. You know, the patch is only going to be there for a short period of time until the road ends up getting repaved. So this is a great opportunity to come in and fix what's under the road before we repave it, as opposed to repaving it and then having to jackhammer up our newly repaved road. So we're good, we're in the clear. The total estimate for this is gonna be $12,850, which is just below, it's $150 below the need to get 3 telephonic quotes. And given the emergency nature of this repair, we're recommending to move forward with this scope of work.
Great. Okay.
That sounds good.
Thorough. Yeah. Vote? Yes, let's vote in favor of that manhole replacement. All in favor? Good, thank you. And the last action item is final release for 10 Sabine / 243 North Windwood Ave subdivision.
I move to approve the release of the final escrow for the 10 Sabine Avenue / 243 North Windwood Avenue subdivision.
Second.
Okay, I think this is,
Pretty basic.
yeah, this was that person selling part of her yard to her neighbor, right?
Yes.
It's just a lot line adjustment.
Right, so, sorry Jim, I'm stealing all your thunder tonight.
No.
So this one, yes, was just a subdivision. There was no land development associated with it, therefore there was no financial security involved. So what this is they provided us that initial escrow to cover all professional services. So that included our zoning officer review fees, our solicitor fees, and our engineering fees in reviewing, reporting and other actions associated with the land development or the subdivision. So in the packet is the breakdown of the invoices for all the professional services. They gave us an initial $5,000 escrow. We spent $3,422 of that. So then we're gonna remit back to them with $1,578 is as the escrow remaining. So that was funds that they gave us for professional services that we didn't end up spending. This was a very simple, straightforward subdivision project, so we didn't end up using all of the escrow. So we will just remit that balance back to them. And this one as well, they've met all of their checklist items, so this subdivision is also going to be considered full and complete and will be closed out after the release of the escrow.
Great, very straightforward. All right, can we vote for that? Release of escrow for 10 Sabine? Great, thank you very much. All right, that's all the action items. Let's go move to discussion items. And let's start with Human Relations Commission charge.
Okay, I think you guys have already reviewed my proposed things. The one thing that I'd left sort of for your consideration is adding, you already talked substantively about adding source of income as a protected class, but I also want to add a type of discrimination being forbidden under the ordinance, which is for in regard to contractual relationships. There's a lot of folks who are treated as independent contractors who are probably employees, and one of the reasons why they are so treated is to avoid having to pay benefits and workers' comp, etc., but also to avoid the anti-discrimination laws. So I'd like to try to close that loophole. Neither federal law doesn't cover independent contractors except as it relates to governmental entities, because governmental entities can't discriminate in their contractual relationships, all their contractual relationships writ large. So I want to kind of close that loophole specifically for independent contractors. State law covers some contractors, licensed professional contractors like hairdressers and doctors, nurses, even if they're independent contractors. The question is whether you want to just do that for people who are in an employment setting. The way I've drafted it, this would be subject to John's review, if you guys agree with the concept, to make sure I'm not being overbroad. But it would actually involve all contractual relationships. So, if I'm hiring a true independent contractor, like a plumber, I can't discriminate on the basis of race in hiring a plumber or a contractor or anybody else who might be I might have a true contractual relationship and they're not my employee. So I've written it that broadly. That might be a little bit, in all honesty, controversial for, single person out who's like, I don't want to get accused of, or maybe I do want to discriminate, and why shouldn't I don't wanna hire a person of color to work on my house, I should be entitled to do that. I don't think you should make that exception from a conceptual point of view, but I'm just throwing it out there because I can hear that argument being made.
Right.
I didn't realize that wasn't covered.
Yeah. Is this covered, do other municipalities cover this kind of thing?
I don't know. I do know that other municipalities have talked about the independent contract, like the independent contractors, the employee issue. I mean, the employment lawyers talk about that all the time, especially on the plaintiff side, like how that's a loophole that needs to be closed in general.
Gotcha.
It's just how broad that's going to be. So that's, and then the other proposed changes all relate to the fact that we're reducing the size of the commission from 7 to 3, which creates potential issues down the line at each step of the process. You can't have the same people handling the mediation, investigation, public hearings. So we've adjusted for that. We've talked about that before. The other things are all very technical. And then the only other thing that I highlighted was there's this exception in the housing accommodations provision that my understanding, and I talked to Cindy Richards this morning to see if she remembered this, but there's an exception to the ban on housing discrimination that says the term housing accommodation shall not include any personal residence offered for rent by the owner or lessee thereof, the owner or lessee's broker, salesperson, agent, or employee. I think the intent of that was to synthesize with this ordinance that they passed to prevent Airbnbs and short-term rentals. But if you read this in and of itself, it means that you can discriminate if you're renting your house out. And I don't think that's
That's what
I don't think that's the intent. So, but I want to talk to John. I highlighted it because when I went through the ordinance 1032, I didn't see how this matched that, and it didn't make sense to me. And that's why I talked to Cindy, and she suggested I raise that with John when I raised the question of the independent contractor. So those are the only two things that are sort of question marks. But I would say, subject to clarification from the solicitor, I'd like to get the well-dressed solicitor, subject to his confirmation that these things are okay, that we would recommend this to full council.
So wait, this would be for landlords who are not just in the business of being landlords with extra property, but your own house, like if you're
Right,
going
if
away
you're,
for a
so
year
let me give you an example. So my, Toby's brother was here for a sabbatical for a year and rented a house for a year on Windsor from some guy who owned the house. I don't know whether he was in divorce or he got married, but
or he was on sabbatical.
or maybe he was, going somewhere else. So, in theory, the way I read this, if housing accommodation doesn't include somebody who's renting a private single residence, then he could have discriminated and not rented to a family.
So I'm a little, okay, I mean, that all sounds great. I'm a little unclear on, like, are these people who are renting to other people, will they have the duty to, like, take a bunch of applicants for renting?
No, it's just,
you just can't.
if a black family
Show
showed
that,
up and he's like, no, I'm not gonna rent to you
Okay.
people,
Okay.
you still have to prove the discrimination,
Yeah.
obviously, and that's why you didn't rent.
Right, I see, okay. Okay.
So, anyway, so I guess it's actually listed as a discussion item, not as something to vote on.
Yeah.
But, so I think, subject to John's answering my two questions,
Yeah.
we can put on the agenda for next month to
recommend
recommend to
good.
council?
I
Okay,
think so.
Okay,
sounds good to me.
Thank you for
Excellent.
work on that.
Yeah,
sure.
good work. All right, I would like to move on to the appointments policy at this
Yes.
point. So let's have a look. Okay, so this is a fresh draft You might remember we brought the former appointments policy draft to the council, and they didn't like it last month. So this is sort of a back to the drawing board, somewhat. It is executive session free. And let's see, we have notes from the manager on this, right? Let's see, how do we want to talk about this? Do we want to go through it paragraph by paragraph?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it back up, because.
It should be in the packet,
Right, but it's not in the order because we moved it. So I
page
gotta go-
47.
Oh, that's
Okay,
why I was
thank
like,
you.
I thought I saw it.
Yeah.
Thank
There
you
it
for flagging that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just go through it quickly. So general provisions and definitions, terms, seat and commission, blah, blah, blah. Okay, 3 says when the terms begin and end. 4 says the vacancy occur before the end. The term doesn't reset. These seats have a defined beginning and end. Okay. 5 says that unless otherwise allowed or required, borough staff can't be a member of the appointment, committee, commission, or board. And 6. I moved this from a different section, just about the borough secretary being responsible for maintaining a list of potential candidates. All right, now the meat of actual appointments. Commission vacancies arising from resignation, like if someone steps down and we need to replace them. This sets out a procedure for accepting applications, and also drawing from the pool of applicants that have accumulated over the year. Now, when we previously talked about this just a little bit, we talked about whether the borough secretary is accumulating a list just for a calendar year, or is this an ongoing, rolling collection of names of interested people? I think we interpreted that as a calendar year, but
That is not how I
Oh,
would
okay.
interpret it, because if somebody submits something in August, I'm not gonna throw it out in January 1st,
Right.
because perhaps they apply for a position on a commission or board that's not in need of a new
Right.
member that year, but perhaps the following year it would be. So I would say if we're gonna put a timeline on it, 2 years, but also
You could-
it could be on an ongoing basis.
you feel less manageable to maintain an indefinite list of people?
Unfortunately, I don't think that people are banging on the door, shouting at my face. So I think, yes, it is manageable given the volume.
Okay.
If that changes, I will certainly alert you to
Yeah.
the
Okay.
additional administrative burden, but I don't think that it's going to be onerous,
Okay,
because then we'll just have
I
a
mean, it's
final.
gonna be back to front or front to back.
It's a
The most
one page, document that will just honestly live on
Yeah.
our internal SharePoint, and just will be funneled in there, and will just be a reference point. So, eventually the contact will be old. So if I have something from 5 years ago but if I have something more recent.
Yeah.
So I think from a matter of practice, I will be reaching for the newer applications first, as opposed to kind of dipping into 5-year-old applications. But you never know when people's lives kind of ebb and flow. So
Okay.
great, okay.
It sounds good.
So 5 says a vacancy that we could opt to let a seat go unfilled if we whatever we feel like. Okay. Let's see, 3 application period. This goes through the timeline of 6 weeks before the end of the year. These are for terms that are expiring at the end of the year, and people have to reapply, and new people who may wish to apply for those seats, regardless of whether there's going to be a reappointment or not. We're still making those seats available for application. Let's see. Complete application form for says. Here again, we have the calendar here. We will change that. All right. 5, sitting boards and commissions, they don't need to resubmit an application. Okay, consideration of appointments. This is where magic happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so Borough Secretary provide applications for appointment and request for reappointment to Borough Council if warranted. So we said if warranted,
Yep.
the Borough Secretary, F&A Committee, or an ad hoc interview committee shall schedule applicant interviews. So we kind of left that kind of squishy about whether interviews would even be necessary under most circumstances. Does
You
that
only
make
have
sense
one
to you?
applicant and they're incumbent, you
Right.
might not. I thought. right?
Yeah, is that something we can work out on the fly, whether we want to hold interviews?
I think that's fine.
Okay,
Everyone will be notified, and then you'll just tell me if you want to schedule interviews as
Yeah.
opposed to mandating that we must hold
yeah,
interviews.
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I think
That's
I'd be
the
more
idea.
comfortable with that, okay. 2, to further assist council making its determination, recommendations may be sought from the current chairperson of the relevant board or commission.
I had one thought, and I think maybe it goes here, but maybe somewhere else. I want to say something that there's no presumption that an incumbent will be reappointed.
That's, for sure that is true. Is that something we want to list here?
I will
Well, isn't the
only-
fact that they're up for reappointment itself
So I'm only saying this because 10, 15 years ago, somebody in Lower Merion was not reappointed to the zoning board or one of the board.
Right.
And she was very insistent that, by tradition, if nothing else, your reappointment was presumed and that she was being, retaliated against because she had refused to approve some zoning thing which pissed off the chair of the board of commissioners. So I just think it's worth putting in there somewhere that, we're not gonna, or it's neither presumed nor either the presumed to be reappointed or presumed to be the favored candidate.
Yeah,
If there's more than one candidate.
seems good.
right?
yeah, we can put that in there.
We can say that?
Yeah, I just think it belongs in there somewhere.
Yeah, it could just be a caveat to,
Yeah.
so you can just kind of make a general statement like that, or if you want to take a stronger stance to say, incumbents, although we say that they don't have to reapply unless required, so I think that statement is
Yeah.
appropriate. If you
Yeah.
wanted to essentially reset the playing field for everybody for every reappointment and make those folks reapply, then we'd have to change some other wording in the document, but I don't get the sense that that's
I don't
actually.
think you have to
No, we don't need to
reapply, but it's just not presumed that you're gonna get it just because you want to be reappointed.
That's fair.
Okay, good. All right, so 3, this one, Maggie, I think you had a note about this, about why is 3 necessary, but I will just explain that, to me, this addresses, names of people, of appointees ending up in the agenda, sort of without council members really actively considering them. So, this one puts the onus on the council people to do their own research and to come up with a consensus nominee, or people who actually have support making it to nomination at the meetings, rather than just appearing on them.
I think what you're getting at here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you are just seeking that there be some sort of formal review process as opposed to there's a vacancy, the first person who applies gets automatically appointed to that seat.
Yeah.
The way that it's worded here, I think it's too much into the administrative weeds of dictating what staff shall do, whereas the appointment policy, yes, it's what staff does, but it's more of a general kind of this is the flow of things. So if somebody is reading this who's either on a board or a commission or seeking to be on a board or commission, they can understand the process.
Mhm.
This, I think, gets too much into a directive to how staff then prepare the packets and the agendas. And I think really what you're saying is that you want the opportunity to vet people before you make a motion on their appointment.
Yes.
So I think that there's a better way that we could say this as opposed to saying like this shall be how the packets are prepared and
Okay.
this shall not be said or this shall be said.
Mhm.
So I think that we can kind of pull it back a little bit more to get at actually what you mean is just that.
I guess I was thinking that this was actually addressing if there were two candidates and two people were gonna be, like in the past, we always get this thing that says, you know, the motion is to appoint Jim Spear on the zoning commission or whatever, it only has one name. So what do we do if there's three candidates? We're gonna consider them at the meeting, but we don't know who we're picking.
No, it includes more. I think the way that you described it was, because it is broader than that, right? Because you may have, because we've had times where it's like there might be only one person and
Right.
they just kind of like show up on the agenda, but to your point, I think it is more about like making sure that whoever it is, whether it's one individual or multiple, that there's been some sort of vetting. So I thought that the way you described it.
Yeah, because so there's two things at play here. There's the what's in the policy to make sure that we effectuate the intent of council. And the second thing is then how we actually structure the physical motion sheets, like what we type down, right, for the motion sheets. So I was following practice when I came in and just put the names on. I've never actually seen it done that way. Typically it's just motion to appoint new member on such and such board.
Yeah.
And then the council members will then make the nomination. If there's multiple, you
Right.
can have a discussion, or if you've done the interviews or something, then you will then be able to make that appointment and select that person.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not actually stated on the agenda or on a motion sheet that
Yeah.
it's just.
So isn't that what this is saying, to follow that practice?
It is, but again, I don't. I'm trying to explain kind of why I feel like it's a little bit too
Yeah.
prescriptive for admin to say that specifically.
Okay, alright,
Yeah.
so we can follow the practice, you just don't want it in the.
Right, so what I was saying
Okay.
is that this is so my comment was, this is a practice we administer internally rather than codifying it in a public policy
Yeah.
document.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we'll figure out how do we say the high level thing that we're trying to accomplish and staff.
We probably have to wrap this up, but we can work on alternate wording for this if necessary.
Yeah, we can keep working on this and then we
Good.
can just put this on for discussion again next month.
Let's stop here,
Yeah.
because I think we're done. The rest of the stuff in this,
There's a public comment that we.
he left, he
Our
got bored.
public person left, yeah.
And there's nobody online? Just gotta make sure that we.
Right,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna mention the other things on the agenda, which are Shade Tree, which is, there's no update on that, or Planning Commission, we don't have an update on the zone, we don't have a recodification update. Website and newsletter, no, we're not, okay. So there's no one online for comment?
Nobody.
Public comment? No public comment, okay, let's have a motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second, all in favor of adjourning? Thank you. Okay.